Vice Chair. Myra. Love the Hello Kitty badge.
Oh, thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a quorum here of our task force. My name is Mark Trowbridge, and I'm proud to chair this task force. I'm going to call our meeting to order of the Business and Economic Development Task Force, November 4th, 2021, about 6:06 p.m. I want to welcome certainly the members of our task force committee, and I also want to welcome all of you who are in the audience today. Truly appreciate your valuable time and input. Our first order of business will be the roll call. So, Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll.
Board Member Leonard. Board Member Camacho.
Here.
Vice Chair Carrillo.
Here.
Board Member Finney.
Present.
Board Member Milam.
Present.
Board Member Pereira.
Present.
Board Member Garcia.
Here.
Board Member Fernandez.
Here.
Board Member Taliar will be present tonight. Board Member Guerra will be present tonight. Chair Trowbridge.
Present.
Perfect.
Fantastic. Our next item is the approval of minutes of our regular meeting from October 7, 2021. Someone like to move those minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes of October 7th, 2021.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against? Any against?
Aye.
You're against the.
No, no, no. I think
Nihal, that's the hardest thing we're going to do tonight.
So anyone against? Perfect. The motion carries.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Update from our council and city leadership. We're certainly blessed to be joined today by our mayor and our good councilmen. Would either of you like to give an update or a go get them charge to the task force? This is our third official meeting, and so great to have you here.
To the chair, I'll abstain from the answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would like to do this thing.
Very good.
Chair, we also have the city manager through.
Oh, I
Zoom.
apologize. On Zoom?
Yes.
Mr. Manager, how about you? I apologize, I didn't see you there.
That's okay. Welcome, and thank you again for your service to the city.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I understand we have some folks also live streaming with us, and I apologize you don't get to see the entire breadth of our task force, but great to have many of you that are with us tonight on the live stream, and I understand you'll have an opportunity to speak as well. Although we won't be able to see you, we will be able to hear you. So without objection, I'd like to move the public comment up in the agenda and make that sort of 3.5. And so let's open the floor to public comment. We'll give each of you 2 minutes, and you're welcome to come to the podium. We just ask that you would identify yourself with your name and address. Excellent. Thank you. And this is not only live, but obviously those of you that are live streaming as well. Just alert us that you'd like to speak. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Hi, this is Annette Woodifon. I'm at 333 Lafayette Drive, but I also have a business on 261 Westford Drive. My question is, it just came to my attention that they are going to be removing the trees in front of our building. And I find that to be quite shocking because we're kind of a tree city USA. And I feel like it's going to impact the beauty of our downtown. So I guess I just wanted to get some clarification on that.
Thank you, and thank you for your great service to the Chamber of Commerce.
You're welcome.
Great to see you. So I may have to defer that to our city manager who's on with us. Mr. Alonso, I want to make sure you heard her question.
Yes, sir, I did. Those trees are black olive trees, which are considered nuisance tree according to the city ordinance. They happen to be on private property. and the owner of the specific property in question, which is down the block from City Hall, requested a permit to remove those. And according to our code, he's allowed to remove them for basically for the reason that it's causing property damage, not only to his building, but the Public Works Director has also determined that it's causing damage to our storm drain system and to our own sidewalks. So when that happens, the property owner is allowed to remove those trees, but they have to mitigate. They either pay a mitigation fee or they replace the trees with similar quantity of trees, city-approved trees. So that's what happens in this case.
Did you have a follow-up or?
Um,
I apologize, just so you can hear
Sorry.
you, you have to be at the mic.
Yeah,
She has a follow-up, Mr. Manager, maybe related to the mitigation.
I just suppose I am concerned because the owner of this building is not so involved, if you will, with the community. And I'm concerned as to what he's actually going to be placing there. Those trees, I know that they're a nuisance, but we have them all over Miami Springs, including in front of my house. And I wonder what's going to be placed there to also provide shade, because the sun comes through that pretty heavily, and we have all windows on those particular offices. So I'm just concerned that it's not going to look the same and it's not going to provide the same sort of comfort for the people in the office.
Thank you. Other folks for public comment? Great to see so many of you here today. Folks that I get to share my life with in Coral Gables, who are also residents of the Springs, very smartly so. Doc, can I call upon you and put you on the spot?
Yeah.
That was the new owner of Crackers. I know many of you read the wonderful Herald article about the change in ownership, but we're incredibly thrilled that you and your partners have come to Miami Springs and discovered what we have known for a long time about the charm of this community. So congratulations to you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. My name is Idal Ahmad. As Mark said, I'm the new owner at Crackers. And after we spoke a little bit, we kind of talked about kind of our journey and why we ended up there, why we chose to settle there. And actually, my wife and I are currently potentially looking to move here to the Springs as well. I had an interesting journey in purchasing the space, and I saw what I think most people didn't in that space, but also in the Springs. When the space apparently had been listed for a while, and then it actually landed with a buddy of mine who moves probably more square footage of second generation restaurant space than anybody in South Florida. And so then I reached out to him and I was like, hey, why did you guys get no bites? Why is this still on the market? And his honest answer was, nobody wants to be in that area. And I was confused, but also people in our industry are not very forth-looking. They usually are looking for trendier towns, and I think it's very short-sighted. For us, we saw a tight-knit community. We saw really a city that doesn't need to emulate any other, which I thought was really interesting. And a space that I think even the previous owners, as long as they had it, I don't think quite understood the gem that they had on their hands. And so as we've moved in and made very minor changes from our perspective, we've seen already increases in sales, lots of, drastic increases in foot traffic. And we've been really happy with it all around. And when we see the way the city's managed, when we see all the business that I know Junior's recently closed down, and I see other of that, I feel like there is more that can be done, but really without losing the city's soul and that kind of small town feel. First, my primary recommendation would be the facades around the circle. I think that kind of look and feel would really create a more cohesive look to downtown the circle area.
No, I think someone's coming into the live. We're not that aggressive.
But we're really thrilled to be here. We're thrilled to see what else we can do with the space. We're about to open up the garden soon, and I'm excited to see the continued growth of the city, and hopefully see it as a resident and a business owner in the near future.
So could I ask you, you mentioned a comment made to you by the broker in terms of nobody's really looking in that area.
Right.
And you said it confused you a bit. Was that because of what you saw, or just that isn't typically how they might position a great restaurant for sale, or maybe both?
Well, for me, with my experience, prior to this, I ran a small chain by the name of Pincho Factory, currently known as Pincho. And our real estate strategy was heavily on the suburban side. We only had really 2 stores in what would be considered urban markets. And most of those actually don't exist anymore. And when you look at in this post-COVID world, the rest of the stores that were positioned further west and in suburban markets actually climbed and thrived through the pandemic. Funny enough, I was a franchisee of my own brand in 2020, and my store was in Doral. It was the only one in the system that closed from COVID. So I think there's strength in tight-knit communities where people will rally around you in a way that transit ones won't. And I think that's definitely one of the parts that attracted me to it.
Yeah, just Mr. Chair, just, at some point, we will probably want to get you on video, just talking about your Fly Miami experience, right? What you just said is pretty compelling. And a big part of what we have to do, and when I'm saying we mean this community, is we have to figure out creative ways to tell our story beyond small sections like this. And so more to come, and I'll share more and tip for the group. The work that we do, and I'm with the Beacon Council, my day job, and our job is to really figure out how to sell Miami-Dade County to the rest of the world and to ourselves. And obviously within Miami-Dade County, each one of the communities. So a lot of work that we're doing right now is capturing the why story, in your case, why Miami Springs, so that it can be told in a compelling way.
I'd love to have that.
And you're well represented here because we do have another restaurateur and owner, Fidel, owns Chiamo. And so you guys are neighbors and fellow entrepreneurs. So
I'll make sure you get their contact information for future follow-up.
Love that.
yes, Patrick. Yes, oh, I apologize. Yes, of course.
Thank
The
you,
restaurant at the Country Club, of course. The night before. My apologies, Patrick. Welcome back,
One
Annette.
more thing, I'm sorry. This is Annette again. I just want to talk a little bit about the Chamber of Commerce,
Please.
if I can. So we founded the Chamber, gosh, was it 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago now? And it was a struggle at the beginning, and then COVID hit, and it became obviously very difficult for us. Although I am no longer the president of the Chamber because my term is up, Alex Miranda is our current president. We do plan on sort of getting back to what we were doing and trying to grow the Chamber. And for us, it's going to be really important, I think, to figure out how we can work together with your committee so that we can all work towards the same sort of benefits for the city. Because obviously our intention is to help with some of this image, that you spoke about, and trying to get more people sort of attracted to this beautiful community in a positive way that's not going to damage, of course, our quality of life. But I don't know how we do that or if we need to have a separate meeting, but I did just want to, relay our interest, if you will, in trying to figure out how to make something happen. I've been to other cities where economic development committees work very closely with chambers, and I think it works really well, so.
No, I appreciate that. And as I said before, the work of a volunteer in any organization, but certainly a chamber, is a heavy lift, even in a non-pandemic period. So I really am very proud of the work that you and Alex and I had a nice conversation a couple of weeks ago. And so happy to have both of you here. What I would also add is that while we're in the sunshine, we'll probably have to have those as publicly noticed meetings if we were to do something kind of as a workshop or offline. But I think that could be one of the tasks of this group, short-term or long-term. Because I think you have folks up here who probably have been members of your organization or could very well become members of the organization. So I want to thank you and Alex for being here with us tonight. David?
Hello, my name is David Vargas. I live at 33 Whitethorn Drive. I simply just want to thank everyone for doing this, for setting up this team. I think you have a challenge ahead of you, but it looks like you've assembled a good group of people, diverse in their businesses, and it's greatly appreciated because the city has such potential, and I know we can meet that potential. Also, the chamber starting again, that's awesome. That's great to hear. These are all my concerns that you and I've had this conversation before. Shame on me for not. Sorry, shame on me for not being here and more involved in my own city. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. Any other public comment? Sir, please. While he's coming up, Madam Clerk, anybody online that's raised their hand or?
My name is George Santine. My wife has a business here as well, Twice as Sweet, little big shop.
Yeah,
And she's part of that charm that I think that we've all talked about, trying to get this little downtown community. Also former president of the Chamber of Commerce. You know, that's they probably did, but a year later, resident of Miami Springs, 1249 Heron Avenue, and also chair to the Recreation Board. That's 12 years. So definitely, this is great. I'm so glad. I kind of read it a little bit later than I wanted to, because I've been here on your other meetings, for sure. I think this is the kind of commitment that this is the only way that it's going to get done, with the energy of people that have a true interest in making a difference. Because it's going to take work. The gentleman was saying, we've tried this before, not our first rodeo, and it always seems to, fall by the seams. And a lot of times I think it's just let the outside noise get in and it starts to talk about complete major change. And it's just about, like you mentioned, our town is charming, but the truth is kind of ugly looking in a sense. I hate to say that, but it's true. The aesthetics, the features that people call small town feel, we don't really have it. It's small town, but it's the features that attract people to come. We don't have, and those are things that we assume that it'll take tasks to get it across to every business owner. Also, whether the council and the city is willing also to help, whether with tax abatements or some type of incentives, so they can, beautify the signs. Let's get in touch with all the little things like that. Street signs, lighting, good attempt with the clock there for Cavalier clock. Those are things that people like. You go any town and you go outside of in this country, it has real charm. And a lot of it's the features and the aesthetics of the buildings. And it doesn't have to be like a complete change of facade, but definitely the little things, like, why don't you all fix these signs where the businesses are, street signs, lighting, just stuff like that. So I know it's a lot of stuff, and we probably have a bunch of stuff to talk about, but I think it all starts with people having energy to get in here and make a change. And I thank gentlemen over here for taking over the Crackers, and look, that whole section, Canal Street. That's how you get. Maybe that whole little section needs to be like a place to go. That's how these little small towns create the atmosphere, by maybe picking a section and saying, not to concentrate only on that, but that's like the Canal Street or the Rivers District, and make it more inviting so people can start walking and going from one place to the other. So a lot of ideas. Thank you for your commitment. This is great. It really is, because it shows that there's hope. And I think we do have the potential, lights out potential. It's just a matter of, getting things in place where everybody can be on board with it, and not necessarily have to be this big picture. Small steps. So that's why I say about the features and aesthetics, because usually when you go somewhere else, you kind of look at the town and look, oh, it's nice, the streets look nice, all the flower beds are nicely placed, and we do have. They've done a good job on Curtis Parkway and stuff, but overall, that's what I'm saying. I think it takes a commitment, and maybe the city too, maybe talk about tax abatements and incentives to get the business owners who probably just have jobs here. Most of them just have jobs. My wife, she works real hard.
No, I was gonna ask her, how long has her business been there?
She's been there now 6 years.
It's incredible.
And her work ethic is amazing. And she, one man show, sometimes she gets some of the college students to help for the summer or the winter when she gets busy. But overall, it's been tough because the foot traffic is never there. So that's my 2 cents for today. But thank you. I really thank you guys.
Tell us the address of her shop.
It is 75 South Royal Ponciano, right next to the farm stores and across the street from Milo's. But
There you go.
thank you.
A little plug, if you will,
Yeah, why
for
not?
those that are also listening online. Let's go out and support our local businesses, because that's as important as what we're talking about here in terms of potential.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Please come forward. Thank you, George.
Sure.
just give us your name and address. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, my name is Daniela Karen. We have a business of audio and video here in Miami Springs, 5465 Northwest 36th Street. They're just beside downstairs. BPS is an audio and video studio for 63 years. I'm the second generation. And we are creating a school because we teach and we need voice talents of any age. We need actors. We are creating schools for elderly people, young kids. We teach music. We teach how to speak in public. We teach how to speak without accent. We teach languages because we work with that. We do translation and we put the movies in other languages. So we are doing all we can to create a good school here of arts. So even painting, everything related to arts. So any idea that you guys have or any help that the city needs, talking about media, TV channels. We also create platforms like Netflix for brands or for cities to how to train people, how to teach persons. So in case I can help in any way, just let me know. I'll be more than glad to help you. That's all. Thank you very much.
So can I ask you, you said you're second generation,
Yes,
63 years?
yes,
I mean, that is applause, applause, applause.
yes.
How did your family get in that business?
My mom, she was the accountant of the previous company, and there was only like small studios of audio, and the owner was pretty crazy, and she decided to say, okay, give me all this back, and I will take this work. So she made it work, and I started when I was 2 years old as a voice talent, and I never stopped it. And we started in Brazil, and it's very curious because this is one thing that we do better than Americans. Why? Because all the movies they used to be in English go into other countries, and now it's the reverse. So and Netflix and Amazon, they're buying content from the videos and movies from other countries and putting in US. So we have more expertise because of the need that Latin America had. So that's why I decided to come here. And I fell in love for Miami Springs, and we have a building here, and we like to, help the city and also get help with the school and creating jobs.
Thank you
That's
so
all.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Andy. My good colleague.
Mandy Yanes, 57 Corridon Drive, before I start coughing again. I was not gonna speak today, but I have worked with them. They are an amazing gem in Miami Springs. If you've never been there, you should. They have tremendous studio. You know, everything that you can think that Emilio Stefan has, they have it better. Honestly, and thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. Tireless chamber leader as well and advocate. But what a great story, because how many of you know about that business? First for me.
Please come visit.
Yeah, a first for me. So I see many of you nodding their heads.
Right next to UTD.
Very important for us to know what's happening in our neck of the woods. That's job creation. Yes.
I was gonna say to her, if you need a bass voice for any of your voiceover.
I do like the voice though, yeah.
Yeah.
Have a pretty voice.
This is his audition tape, by the way.
For what it's worth, I do perfect all-state commercials.
Oh. Very nice. Who knew this would turn into a great gig for my family? Anyone else for public comment? Anybody online? Fantastic. Then we'll close the public comment and we'll move on to item 4, which is new business. Item A is discussion on the context and content of the business survey. This was a tabled item from our October meeting, so I'm going to open the floor for discussion. This is one of the early ideas that I think our group had going back to our first meeting in September. So we just love to maybe create some dialogue around this, where some initial thoughts were, where we might go with this. So we'll open the floor to members. Madam Vice Chair.
Was this going to be to the business owners or to the whole community?
So I think initially the conversation was about the business owners, but I heard last month a little bit about residents as well. So I think that's really up to this body to decide, A, what our priorities are, B, what our goals are with that. So that's a great question. Because I think even today, you've got a number of businesses represented, and we're gleaning information by what they're presenting and what you're asking as well, because I think a lot of it are the upsides and then the downsides, and then where do we take that?
Should we move it, should we have like two separate sections, maybe one survey for the businesses? Maybe start with that because it's a smaller amount. And then open it up for the community.
It's a great idea. We may have you self-select if we do it electronic and say, you know, identify, are you a business owner, in the Springs resident, because some folks here are both, which would probably give us a very comprehensive, so. Other thoughts? That's a great idea.
As far as the questions, I have three that, I don't know, I mean, I've already shared them. I can read them out loud. If that's me.
Yeah, please. But I think that's gonna be one of our next steps, is to ask this group to help to submit some questions, maybe through the clerk, and then we can come back at our next meeting, start to hone in on it. Go ahead,
Doesn't
please.
necessarily have to be in this order.
Sure.
What type of business would you like to see in Miami Springs? And thoughts on how, that's one. Thoughts on how to attract customers to existing businesses. And maybe this would be, if they like to see a certain type of business, do they know someone that to open a business of that type, or maybe they can recommend a business owner that may be thinking about, may have an intention of expanding or possibly opening.
I think that's great. And your question number two about attracting customers, I think goes to George's earlier point about foot traffic issues, and how that's a real challenge to businesses of all types, is to have enough critical mass that keep those doors open, and you need to be open. I was just at my dry cleaner, who's on 36th Street, and I said, what are your hours on Saturday? And she said they're 8 till 5, but we're thinking of closing maybe at 3, because the only folks that come at 2 minutes till 5, because it's like the bank, you know, they show up right before we close because they're like, you're about to close. So those are great, and I think it's a great idea to have folks maybe craft questions like Maria did. Other things that are people are thinking about that might be important to add to the survey as well.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please.
on behalf of Councilman Dr. Victor, last year's mandate was supposed to be here today, but he had a very busy day talking with some people. He asked me on his behalf to request for getting the survey. One, he mentioned what businesses in the city do people patronize in that survey, so we can get an idea of who's patronizing what.
So like, where do you shop?
Correct. Second, he said, do they patronize in the morning, lunchtime, or evening? Sorry.
Oh, that's better. Sorry about that, Nihal.
I started. The businesses he mentioned was what businesses do the city people patronize in the city, just for the recording. Second, what times would these people patronize these businesses? Morning, lunch, or evening? And then the patronizing, does it happen for businesses? Where do they start? A very important question for Miami Springs. By the way, very few people know this. Miami Springs is one of the few cities in Miami-Dade County that does not charge for parking. It's a very good selling point when you get to that stage. And the last question he said was, what new businesses should the city attract, with the vice chair brought to our attention just now. And further down the road, I have a few other things I'd like to talk about. I think you have that in your further agenda.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Captain. So that's a great start. I love the one about what are your habits, and getting to the core of it, because that'd be great for residents as much as fellow businesses. Where do you shop, the time of day that you shop? I'm sure you guys chart that a lot in your business. And people are probably creatures of habit too.
So does Google.
Yes. Big brother's watching. Thank you, man. Mr. Finney?
Yes, so in preparation for this question in particular, I just took a look at some of the research and data that's available on Miami Springs. And a lot of this stuff you all know, so I'm helping myself get more familiar with everything. And so we rely very heavily on Miami-Dade sites. I don't know if you all use that a lot or not, but if you just Google Miami-Dade sites, it'll take you to the GIS hub that we have that has an incredible breadth and depth of data about everything in Miami-Dade County, and it breaks it down in many ways that you'll like. Most notably, you can pull up Miami Springs. And what it does is it gives you a lot of data, it shows you where people are spending their money, right? They're spending on shelter, transportation, food and beverages, healthcare, utilities. Those are the primary things that people spend their money on in the community. It lists all the businesses by one, total number of businesses, two, by type. So professional services and technical services is the #1 employer in this community, which is amazing because those tend to be high-paying jobs. Transportation and warehousing #2, education #3, healthcare and social services #4. So it breaks it all down in excruciating detail so that we can understand the businesses that are here, so that if you set up the questions, you can then, I think, tune the questions a little bit better for the kind of businesses that we have. It also breaks it down by the number of employees. I was curious to know, what's the range from, 1 to 2 employees to, hundreds of employees. Well, it turns out 72% of the businesses here have between 1 and 4 employees. And more importantly, 97% have less than 50 employees. So we are truly a small business community, but this whole region is small business. Miami-Dade County's numbers are very similar to what you see here in Miami Springs. But anyway, this kind of data is what we've dug into, or what I've looked into, about our research team pointed me forward as I started asking questions about Miami Springs. And it's available, by the way, to everybody. So it's not something you have to have special licenses for. It's a joint project between Miami-Dade County and the Miami-Dade Beacon Council, where we maintain this site. The other thing that's really cool about it, I can do a property search. I know early on we had some information around property searches and sites that may be available. And all that, I think, is a part of what we want to include in the survey in one way or another. And it helps us understand where sites are, the types of uses that may be available on those sites. It's all here. And so we don't have to do missionary work. We can take what's already available in this deep, rich database and use it. So I wanted to make sure that that's at least one of the tools we go to as we start to develop this survey.
So that's terrific. Can I ask you, was there an aha for you as you were looking through that? I know there's a tremendous amount of data that you have mined. And that's great. I would encourage everybody on the task force and in the audience to have a look at that. You just Google, as you said, Miami-Dade sites, SITES.
Yeah. The thing that probably jumped out at me most was the top industries in the community. Yeah, because I was thinking it was going to be hospitality and tourism. And the reality is it's professional services, scientific services, transportation and warehousing. That one didn't surprise me as much because I know the airport's not too far away. Education, real high, healthcare, social services. So the industry probably is what surprised me most as I looked at the data, but a lot of it is reflective of what we see across all of Miami-Dade County.
Fantastic. So other thoughts in terms of the survey? Adele?
I would like to propose a digital and also a printed copy. I have a very wide demographic of people, so some of them are not internet savvy.
Absolutely. And that's a great suggestion that folks can fill it out online, or they can do it in a printed version. We come over here to Francisco and then an audience question.
Yes, another thing that might be helpful is reaching out to the actual owner and see what they intend to do with the property.
Okay.
Because there's many vacant sites along Westwood Drive and throughout the city that sat there vacant for years. You walk by and you see that it's like they left a ghost town. And one of the things in order to accomplish our mission is to see if there's any interest on behalf of those owners and why they're holding it, because they're not collecting anything. It's just sitting there and deteriorating. You go in right there by on Westwood Drive, I think it's the 200 block on the south side. That office, they have the light on at night and you see all the papers strewed all over the.
So just a block from here.
Yes, sir.
It's like the break of
So is there an interest on that property owner to do anything? Because I can't think if you're a businessman that you would let a property just sit there and deteriorate for years and years. So if we want to go ahead and improve the city, those property owners have to want to be a part of it. They have to be part of the team because you're spinning your wheels if you come up with all these great ideas and they don't buy into it. So I think that's one of the fundamental things that we need to do as a committee and as a city, reach out to the actual property owners. Not the businesses are very important as well, but the actual property owners, what they intend to do. Another thing that's happened throughout the years that I know of is that there's business owners that in the past have rented out to restaurants and to other businesses. And once they become successful, they jack up the rent. It's all month to month. And what happens is the word's out there that it's not a business friendly community because there's been restaurants that they've built up clientele. And when things are going really well, they raise the price so much that they no longer can stay. So they build up a clientele, they build up a rapport with the community, and before you know it's gone because they're doing month to month, no long-term leases. So that's the heart of it. What do they really intend to do with the property? That's the
Do you see that Francisco is maybe another audience that we survey in terms of?
Oh, definitely. I think this is an audience I think that needs to be contacted personally, not wait for them to come to us. I think it behooves us not to go and reach out to them personally.
So it's more organic than a survey per se. It's a reach out. Okay. And I'm sure we can come up with those because we have the eyeball test as much as we have what's on the market and what's in the city. I probably drive by that brick building every day, never noticed that.
I'm a walker, so
I love it.
So I see.
Mine's across the street. So.
Right. So you see it all the time. As you leave tonight, walk by there.
Yeah.
And you'll be amazed. And that's been probably vacant. Charlie, how many years? 10, 12 years? 10, 12 years.
Although they did replace the windows like 4 or 5 years ago.
But that was it.
But that's it.
Board member.
But maybe it's an
But
issue.
here again, the family should be reached out to, you know.
I
hey,
agree.
we're trying
That's a
to
great
do-
idea. We can divide and conquer on that one too. Max, and then we'll let George make his comment.
Mr. Chairman, is there an email address? I'll do this tomorrow, and I know I can finalize 3 or 4 questions that I think would be important to me, but that everyone can submit questions that they have, even people who are here this evening. That
Absolutely.
we can consolidate and get that in front of our eyes, so hopefully we can take a positive direction.
I would suggest sending that through the clerk of the board. She's great at taking your emails and compiling those and then sharing those as appropriate. So maybe what we could do is, if that's kind of a motion, Max, ask people to submit 3 to 5 questions that they might see as appropriate for a survey and determine the audience, or do it for both. And folks could maybe have that to us next 10 days. Would that be acceptable? We take care of that kind of before the Thanksgiving holiday. So let's say the 19th. Not that Friday coming up, but next Friday. And we'll send out a reminder. We did a little recap after the last meeting ahead of the minutes, and I hope that was helpful. Keep you all informed of things we're hearing. I mean, one of the things I think is great is that some of us have reached out and encouraged audience members to come today and speak and be heard from, or at least be part of the process. Because I think the more that these chairs are filled, the more input that we're going to get, the more informed that we're gonna be. So, George, you wanted to offer something.
I think while brought up and just realized maybe getting us to down through the questions. I was going to say one of the questions, the big question, kind of point blank, like what is it you like about our downtown? What is it you don't like, and what would you do that would attract you? Or like 3 big questions that are specific to why are you not coming? Or if you do come, why are you coming? And if you want to come, what would make you come?
Perfect.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you very much. Any other input from the board?
Just one
Yes,
more
sir.
comment on the gentleman's excellent idea to reach out to the landlord. I have heard, I don't know how far this is true, but there are a lot of buildings there, or some buildings that are under trust. And the owners have passed on and given it to their children. And they could care less because they don't even live here. So maybe the city can reach out to these trust babies or kids and try to work with them, because this seems to be always a hindrance. For the last 20 years ago, when you were talking as an economic society, that they couldn't find these people, and wherever they were in LLCs, and they got PO box, and they can't find them. So it's going to take a monumental task on the side of the city to try to rectify this and try to solve that. Because we cannot do anything with the facade of the building and make this place attractive. Like the gentleman the other day said, there are areas here that can really be revitalized. Get the owners somehow on our side, maybe the city's side, and for the residents and the businesses. So having said that, I hope that we can reach the city powers to be to try to find these people.
Yeah, the problem is that when you deal with absentee ownership, it's very hard sometimes to track through that. I've seen that in, communities I've worked in before as well. And they tend to, in many cases, have the challenges that we're talking about here, where the empty storefront, where you're seeing ragged and you're seeing a deteriorating building. I don't think I've ever seen businesses here necessarily put up paper in the windows when they're sort of in transition. That could be beautifully designed, almost like something like this, like open your business here. I remember the DDA used to do that downtown. It said, imagine your dream and your new business here. And it takes a little bit of time, and a little bit of money to do that, but at least it addresses some of those issues, in terms of being able to see in and see paper strewn about. Okay, so nothing more on that item. I think we all understand that we'd like to submit some questions. Yes, sir.
I did have one additional comment in terms of the kind of abandoned properties and stuff. We have a similar issue right next door to us where a home has been abandoned for a while. I expressed interest in doing something there, and the number one comment that everybody tells me is like, don't even bother. And I'm like, do you know me well enough? I don't really. But it's sad to see that such a nicely placed property right in front of water has been abandoned for so long. I can definitely see a wonderful outdoor. It's definitely something that.
I have no fear that you will persist. All right, so with that, by the 19th, think about maybe 3 to 5 questions. You can send those through Myra. That would be terrific. And we'll have a chance to do some compilation. We can review those at the following meeting. The next item was actually proffered by our good friend, Mr. Miles. So I'm going to turn it over to him.
Okay. This next item, I'm going to go back 19 years, and I think that's the first time I came to a council meeting. And most people up here know that parking is near and dear to my heart. And for 19 years, it's been a problem, and it's still a problem. I used to be much more active where I would come to council meetings and have my say, but nothing ever changed. You can go out there with a camera and look at the pictures I had 20 years ago, and everything's exactly the same, even the building. And what first got me started, and this is a transcript from a Board of Adjustment meeting that I attended on December the 4th of 2002 here in Miami Springs. And it was regarding the granting of a variance for the lodge that was up there. If you remember, it was 1 Westford Drive. And that somebody owned the property and they wanted to redevelop it. And redeveloping it, they came with a proposal, and to me, they were going to overdevelop it. Because this property had been vacant for a long time, and the way I understand the code, when you redevelop it, you change the footprint, you got to basically bring it to code. And so they built 3 restaurants, and those 3 restaurants, based on the size of the building that they have on the property, should have required 14 parking spaces. And I came in opposition to that because I'm an adjacent business owner, and I already think my parking's tough. And I knew, well, now that we have 3 restaurants, where are these people going to park? And so I just came to express my concerns, and I thought it was incumbent upon the city to not exacerbate a problem that we already had by allowing a property to overdevelop. And so, and I even brought, it shouldn't have been my response, but I even brought renderings of how they could put 2,500 square foot 1 restaurant on the property and have 9 parking spaces, which would have met the parking code for that one restaurant. But the position was taken that to deny that to the owner of the property would deny them their property rights. And during this meeting, there's a lot of discussion by the Board of Adjustment talking about, we have a problem in Miami Springs and we got to fix it, all around parking, from the applicant and the people that served on the Board of Adjustment at that time. That was 19 years ago. Nothing happened. So going back to 2007, the city looked again at possibly doing some parking at the beginning of Curtis Parkway. And the city, unbeknownst to me at the time, the city actually engaged a firm to come up with some renderings about adding some parking that could be tastefully done with the memorial there and other things. And it's here in the packet. I can't hand it out to everybody, and I'm sure everybody up here on this task force has seen it. And again, it was looked at, the city obtained budgets, and again, it was put in the trash can. And I think I came here one other time, I don't remember what for, but eventually I just ran out of gas. I said, I just can't do this anymore. And I'm candid, when I was first called about serving on this task force, I was reluctant to do so because I just felt like that's gonna be more of the same. Nothing's gonna change. And, you know, I think there's a lot that's gonna do, and I agree with what a lot of people about, you know, the city looks tired. There's things we can do and a lot of cities have done it. We're just not right here. My children work for me, and they're all in their early 30s, and they tell me all the time, why doesn't Miami Springs do something on Western Drive like every other city is doing? To invite people to come, but to do that, you have to make it inviting out there, outside the premises too, on the sidewalks like everybody else is doing. But again, I want to get back to that. To me, parking is a problem, and we have to solve it. And I think when I get busy, where do people park? When my parking lot's full, they park across the street in front of the office building, you know, right next to your shop, and they walk across, you know, North Royal Poinciana, which I walk across that street 10 times a day, and I'm still here. I'm lucky because I'm telling you, people come off that circle like a slingshot, and so they park there. There's businesses. I'm not going to say a name, obviously, but there's a business owner on Westward Drive that every day parks his car in the handicap spot in my parking lot for the entire day that he's there. Again, there's no parking for these businesses. They're not, you know, it is what it is. But daggone it, let's do something about this. This is my last hurrah. This is the last time I'm going to come here and talk to the city about let's do something. And I'm not talking about just parking, but let's do something. This is 19 years. I'm 61, so I was in my early 40s when I first came here 19 years ago. And it's time to do something. That's all I want to say.
May I add something to that? I'm on 261 Westward Drive, you know. Before the pandemic, our office building was not to full capacity. We had a very large, the old gift shop was opened and it had been open for a long time. Every single office has been built now, and they divided one of the bigger offices into 4 offices. So when I get to work now, there is no parking. I get there at 10. By 10, everything is gone. And my concern is there are clients, you know, people that are paying customers that need to come into some of these shops and restaurants and things that we have even on that block and across the street. There is no parking for that. So if there's no parking for me, you know, at 10 o'clock, if they come at 11 or 12, they're definitely not going to get parking. It's being taken up by all of the employees, of course, of these, you know, different buildings. And then across the street, we've got, you know, medical centers and things like that. So it's become a lot worse since the entire building was taken up. And it's not just affecting our parking, but it's affecting even the people, you know, down the road, because I see them going down there parking. So now some of the pet groomers and things like that don't have parking for their customers. So I agree with you. It's a big issue.
I remember your meeting 19 years ago.
Yeah.
And I believe as a result, the city came up, and you mentioned they had been planning with the organization. Did they come up with a plan that maybe we could bring back up and revisit now to add angle parking on Westwood Drive? It was shut down because the residents were totally against it, and they were thinking about it, bringing the traffic, et cetera. But perhaps it's something that can be revisited.
Versus the parallel.
Yeah, versus the parallel, it's almost like a Main Street feeling where they would add angled parking where the median is now. They would take a little bit of the median away. Part of the plan including widening the sidewalks, which would be interesting to someone like Fidel and his business, and some of the other businesses there, and make it more of a pedestrian friendly area, but at the same time add the additional parking which will be
Like Hollywood Boulevard.
right. I think it was
Yeah,
Hollywood
a lot.
Boulevard. They used that as an example. I think the firm that was studying, that did the study, had done the Hollywood Boulevard. Was it? And so something to bring back up.
19 years ago, I studied this. But Alex Miranda just said exactly what I was gonna propose. It's
Sorry.
2 blocks from the.
That's right, he has the mic now.
No idea. I was gonna suggest, since you're talking about the parking crisis, has anybody gone in the middle of the day and walked on Westwood and tried to park anywhere on Westwood Drive?
Yeah, it's
You can't.
difficult. You can't, no.
Sunset moved.
And you think a lot of those folks are employees.
Sunset took over the
I know.
DGMP. That parking lot is completely full all the time in the daytime. In the evening, yeah, it's vacant and nothing from Piano and his business. People are allowed to park there. But there's a huge problem that what Mr. Marlon is saying is very true. Because a lot of people work in the daytime, who work in this building, have no clue what's going on. 51 years ago, the city is just like that. It's really, like he said, this is my last tour. I'm gonna try really hard with this entire great minds here.
Remember
I
your
only
mic,
hope that the council and
your mic. You can-
I only hope that the council who took it upon themselves to create this task force is able to convince there are people in this city, in this building, that I know of, and I'm not gonna mention any names, that don't want to change anything. They want to be on status quo. Evidence. I have documents. Look at all these papers. All evidence. Other problem that we have is code. Code compliance, it's antiquated. We have a color palette that came up the other day at a code compliance meeting that belongs 100 years ago. It's one color, just like change. We have to look at everything. This city has so much potential. It irritates me to see that this is, like you said, this is the last tour. I'm sure none of these people are going to be back again. And I have been quiet for the last 2 meetings because I was listening. But I took notes mentally and I started studying on the document that this Madam Secretary, our city clerk, is so good to us. And I have a commendation that all of us to talk about it. This is not the right time. I'll bring it up later. Please, can I do it now?
Feel free. Sounds like we're in line to do something.
Miss Myra Allen is not only the city clerk, assistant city clerk, she also is attending to all the work we are trying to accomplish. And if you think it's only us, she's in charge of total of 10 different boards and task forces. That's in addition to her full-time work she does from 8 to 4:45 in this building every day. And then she works another 11 days every month, late into the evening on these task forces. So I had a little thing I formulated that I feel this task force, I hope you all agree, should have a letter written up for her. And you want me to read it?
Go for it.
The Business and Economic Development Task Force of the City of Miami Springs would like to recognize and commend Ms. Myra A. Allen for her dedication and work with this task force, helping coordinate all activities, documents during and after work when our meetings are held on a monthly basis. We would also like to commend and recognize her for all her efforts of 10 other boards and task forces that she's involved in a like manner with the city of Miami Springs, which takes her away on evenings to facilitate all these meetings on a monthly basis. Submitted with much appreciation and gratitude for your efforts and hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Could I turn that, are you turning that into a motion so that we can then send that on behalf?
No.
All right, you're a second?
Thank you.
All right, it's a very strange, what would you call the roll?
Absolutely. Board Member Leonard. Board Member Camacho. Vice Chair Carrillo. Board Member Finney.
Yes.
Board Member Mylum.
Approved.
Board Member Pereira.
Yes.
Board Member Garcia.
Yes.
Board Member Fernandez.
Yes.
Chair Trowbridge.
Yes,
The motion carries. Thank you.
and you have our many, many thanks, and I think,
Thanks.
that is a very thoughtful thing for you to do, so.
Yeah, because she's
Thank you.
very involved with all these.
Absolutely, and I can tell you being one of her 11 chairs, she has taken me by the hand and been very kind to me
I know
and
that.
helpful hints, so that's very helpful.
Thank you.
So, without objection, there's one question from the audience, and I want to go back and see where we're at on item B. Yes, ma'am.
Both are saying it's from 19 years ago, but I'm in the city only for 7 years, and even my building was beige, and I would like to make white and blue, and was a huge fight to make it white and blue. Not even anything. We arrived and make a panel, and now it's crazy, everybody's complaining. So even when we want to make something different or innovate and do like a graphics, I would like to make graphics beautiful, work with media. We can do anything. So it's the, to change, I have thousands of ideas that we can make better, but have to come from inside to outside. Use building, but I might change mindset. Otherwise, even if we have money, we have ideas, we won't do anything. We'll be here just fighting, and then, okay, let's do it. We are right here to the city, and we can do anything. So even to paint white and blue a building is a fight of 6 months. So I agree with what they're saying, but with all the strength that we have, we also need the help of the city. Because even painting the colors of your building is difficult. So how can we change this mindset in the city? How can we help with that?
And I'm so sorry to interrupt. This wouldn't be the board to talk about this. This would be something for like a council meeting.
Actually,
Yes.
I have a question about that because Mr. Pereira brought up.
And let me just, I should have asked you as well, but could you come to the microphone, just for the benefit of the managers on the line, along with some folks, I just want to make sure they can hear. I apologize.
Jeffrey Garcia with United Teachers of Day. And actually, I was going to say thing, but now that she brings this up and Ms. Pereira brings up the code issue, is that a problem? Is that, I mean, I can stand here and whine about what happened on Tuesday, but there were other people. He was there.
I was here for that time.
I mean, it was,
But
it was someone called.
I'm so sorry, but this is not the board to express
No, that's my
that.
question. Is code a problem for bringing new business here? Is that an issue? Is that a deterrent? Because it's making me want to leave. So I don't know if that's a deterrent for people coming in.
No, I understand, but that would be something
Yes.
that you would,
I happen to know that 2 businesses in the last 15 years tried to get code approved on certain things, and guess where they went? To a wonderful neighbor, Virginia Gardens. Everything that we do here is against, look at every city, look at Palm Avenue. Who would have thought Palm Avenue would have renovated and looked better than Miami Springs Westwood Drive? We have so much to offer the entire world, and they're just forgetting about it.
And you can tell me that code is the board that I should go to?
No, you should go to the council
That's
meetings.
it.
They're the second
But
and
I will
fourth
say,
Tuesday.
you know, we want to hear that too, because I suspect that as we come back to the council, you know, we're going to have recommendations that will probably cut across many lines. And I assume if we're talking about ways to address infrastructure, that's going to fall under code. Some of the comments that have already been brought up this evening are right on those kind of nibbled edges of what might be code. parking requirements are code. So.
I just introduced myself to her, so people may think that we did this in concert, even though we're neighbors. But, you know, when she's saying,
We're not discussing, it's just a mindset that we're discussing.
Yeah.
We're discussing
Yeah, but we want to hear about issues that are deterrents.
I mean, we can't even improve, I mean, I know 36th Street is a historically designated street, it needs to be preserved, but, that was humorous, but, you know, we're just trying to improve, and, you know, one of your board members, to your point, was at the meeting on Tuesday, and, I mean, I wasn't sure if we were gonna leave in handcuffs, I didn't know how that meeting was gonna end. It was
I invite everybody to go on YouTube and please type in my code compliance meeting 2nd of November. I was here for the vote.
They didn't let him speak.
I came to, just so you know, 2 minutes before the meeting, I happened to be sitting there in the back, and all these people, this place was almost full of teachers and everybody who wanted to speak. And about 2 minutes before 7, I looked over, I didn't see the sign-in sheet. And you can hear me say, because Myra has started the machine, but that microphone was really bad. And I said, I walked up, I was respectful to chairwoman, chair lady, I said, Madam Chairwoman Jimenez, I've been a resident of Miami Springs for over half a century. I don't see a sign-in sheet. I would like to speak. She looked over at the city attorney and then she said, sorry, nobody can speak today. Halfway through the meeting, the city attorney realized it's a public meeting. What I said was true. You cannot hear here's the thing. He said, it's a meeting. He said people can speak if they choose to. But there was a lady next to her on her right, who supposedly is an attorney on this board, board compliance board. She's been on it for 20 years. She was blocking the attorney who was representing the teachers. He had some valid points. He was so nice. He was trying to say, they're trying, they're begging, they're trying to get the city to work with us. I found out that they paid $3.42 million for that building in cash. And you just heard what he said, that they cannot leave. Is this the way they are treating agenda item 4C? Roll out the red carpet, thanks to the Mr. Garcia, who mentioned this to us last month. This is why I'm angry, you know, because I lived here for over half a century, and I see this city just every time all these proposals are made, including Mr. Marlon. They just turn everything down. Can't they take the good with these proposals? They're spending the money, but people know this. There are people in this city who want to force everything. We have to find a way to work with the residents and the businesses and make this place so attractive that people who spend millions of dollars or even $100,000 who come here don't get fed up and leave. The council is trying. The city manager is trying, but I also know that there are other people constantly blocking things all the time. Sorry.
So I appreciate that, and I appreciate your comments too, Jeff. I think our goal has been since day one to cast as wide a net as possible. We want to hear. We've invited people to come in and speak to us. I think the fact that every member of the council appointed members to be on this task force shows their commitment to hearing our voices and eventually delivering them a report. But I'm going to move on from this item, but I just want to remind you what Max said. Let's do something. So I think that not only applies to this conversation regarding parking, but conversations around code, conversations that go to the core of people wanting to bring their business here. I can't imagine if you want to open your business here and we find ways to turn you away. And maybe that's really a good segue into item C, which is an item that I added because it was sort of nibbled around the edges in our last meeting after we heard from Jeff and sort of the way they didn't feel particularly welcomed at UTD. But I'm sure there are other stories like that. And so I've talked to our mayor about what we can do from a city leadership standpoint. And I'm so thrilled that our chamber is here because in many ways, this is low-hanging fruit in terms of when new businesses open, of going and welcoming them and patronizing them. It can be something as passive as going by and visiting and introducing yourself to something as formal as a ribbon cutting or anything in between. But there are milestones in any business. We have a business that's just put millions of dollars into upgrading their beautiful store. And it's probably a few weeks away from being where we're ready to cut a ribbon. Few months, cut a ribbon, but those are moments that remind people that this is our community. We're investing in it. We're reinvesting in it. You're spending a lot of dollars. And I think you said at the first meeting, you acquired the store in '95. This is like the first big, massive renovation you've done.
1997, and I will say, this is, you made this point, a lot of these properties are owned by trust. This property, we own it, we bought it. We leased it in 1997, Ken Holden, who owned it at the time, or leased it. And in 2001, I believe, we bought the property, it was owned by a trust. And the good thing when a property is owned by a trust is there's no emotion involved. So it was a pure business decision. It was clean, it was simple, it was fair. And it was, it was the best thing we ever did, and it allowed us to reinvest in the property. I will tell you, and with this remodeling that we're having now, I've been trying to do that 5 years. I'm part of a family business. I have 12 other family members that are a part of our business. And was not an easy decision because other family members know about the parking problem. And you just don't invest millions of dollars if you aren't going to bring more feet into your store. And I had to sell this. And I've been trying to sell it for a long time. And I finally sold it. And they agreed to it. I just hope my head isn't on a platter a couple of years from now. But in all seriousness, that is a problem that I had to face. And it took me years to get other shareholders to agree to invest this money because they were afraid we would not get the return. Because again, we're doing this to bring more people into Miami Springs, more people to the traffic circle, more people to the downtown business district.
So that's a great reminder to us of not only our charge, but these are real world decisions. These aren't just talking hypothetically about we got to work on this or we have to work on that. I appreciate you sharing that very much, Max. And I hope that we got our chamber folks in the room too. I hope that we can lean on you and say, help us celebrate these new businesses. In many cases, you might be doing that on your own already. But how do we get, Councilman Best and Mayor Mitchell and others involved in that? People love to cut a ribbon. I know that seems maybe a little bit, antiquated, but it reminds people that people are coming here and investing. To Mike's point, we know what kinds of industries we have here. What can we do to turn around and either continue to attract or work our way into a narrow path of other opportunities? I mean, I was surprised that most aviation is under professional services. I would have thought that would have been much higher on the list. Because the eyeball test would tell you that down 36th Street, maybe some of that's under warehousing. But I think that's another way that we can, as a group, put our imprint on the welcoming of new business. People pay attention. The story that the Herald did about Nadal and his partners buying crackers, I saw that. That's how I came to know about that information. And I was there the following Sunday to be like, what's going on here? There he was right at the front counter. But to Mike's point too, he says, we want to get your story because that helps us tell the story of Miami Springs, not only about people who lived here, but people who have also invested here and opened their businesses. So item D is just really about business type visits. A lot of you folks came tonight because maybe you saw our invitations on social media. I want to thank Mike for helping us do that. And I want to encourage all of you on the task force too, that when you see that, share that on your social media so that folks in your circle know what we're doing here each month. That this isn't just an exercise of having a conversation to hear us talk. We're looking at data, we're looking at proposals, we're revisiting long-standing issues. And in the end, while they have been here every meeting, they're hearing all of your voices in terms of that level of encouragement, so that when the time comes to not only deliver this report, but to take some action, they've heard very passionately from all of you and from those of you in the audience. So I want to encourage you to continue to do that. And remember, although we're under the rules of sunshine, you can go out and visit. I am definitely going to visit your wife's shop. That sounds like a lot of fun. I can't believe I've never been there. This body is built by sweets. So I'm ashamed of that, but I'm at Max's place at least once a week. And what I love most about that is you just got such cool young people. They make you feel good about shopping there. And that reminds me of when I was growing up, and that was maybe for some of them their first job. And you could feel that family connectivity along with the amazing sourdough bread. So you've increased that to 5 loaves. Well done. It's my niece's good effort. She talked to, I think, one of your daughters and started making that happen. So now I'm like, we got to keep the trend going. So all of you are consumers. I think, Maria, one of your first questions of what businesses do you like to see? Somebody also added, where do you shop? I think that was from one of the council members, and you all brought that. When do you shop? Great question. Where do you park? So we've already got the basis for some of those things. So I'll open it up now to some just general conversation from the committee and make sure we're making good progress. You know, I think we covered the items that you wanted to add.
Just one more thing on Canal Street. We should really, my request was to revisit all of these plans that were created some 25 years ago. And there are a lot of good things that the city and the taxpayers spent good money on. I wish some of these were implemented 25, 20 years ago. This would be a totally different, we won't even have to charge for that. So I highly recommend all of us, when we have, I know you're not, I'm the only retiree here, so I got more time, but ask you to please try to read some of this stuff that was on a bit already. I don't know where you find the time, but so at Canal Street, your canal, right? Yeah. Yes. So that can be, there's a wealth of knowledge here on Canal Street and Westwood. And do you want to talk more about that area on Curtis? Similar to the.
Well, I mean, I'm firmly in favor of this proposal that was done back in 2007. I'm a firm believer in this. I see it again. Like I said earlier, where do people park when they're shopping in my store and my parking lot's full? They park across the street, right in front of my office building, which is very dangerous. And the key, and that's why I say you can't have a remote parking lot over behind the post office or somewhere. It has to be there. When people get out of their car, they want to be able to walk to where they're going, to Supercuts or wherever, and see their car across the street. And that's why I think the benefit of the beginning of the Curtis Parkway, something very tastefully. These proposals were very tastefully done. And I think something like that needs to happen. Westward Drive. My kids were here, they would say, man, why do you have 2 lanes going? They would say, why do you have 2 lanes going both ways? You want traffic calming because you want people outside in the sidewalks. You don't want cars racing by. You want traffic calming. So what? Somebody has to slow down a little bit. If you don't want to use Miami Springs as your cut through, go somewhere else. If you want to see Westward Drive revitalized, when I left I walked down the street the other meeting because I don't often, even though I park, go to my office building every day. I walk down it at night. I'm like, man, this is depressing. There's not much going on here. And let's open it up. Let's make it inviting. Let's have the residents out there. My kids would be telling me this much better than I am. And we're missing the boat. It's, no more years wasted. Let's do it.
Through the chair, did we discuss the rolling out the red carpet?
Just brought it up a little bit in terms of getting the chamber involved in the city leadership. It's a conversation I also had with the mayor in terms of how we could formalize that. I don't know if we didn't take a motion on it, but I think just one of our ideas that may end up in a recommendation back to the council. Mr. Fernandez.
If I may, one last thing.
Just pull your mic over a little bit.
If I may, one last thing on the parking. I happen to have sat on the Board of Adjusters when Mr. Mylan came. And it's amazing how the city has transformed over the years. Back then, the beginning of a parking problem was starting to emerge, impacting Milan. There was a supermarket there before, which was underutilized. Through the efforts of the Milan family that brought great success to the market, but the community was already changing. When you had a parking problem back then, predominantly was at night, because you had a theater, you had Billy's Seafood, you had the Garden, you had Joe Pepe, you had the chicken place. So if you came downtown, you had a parking problem at night. And now we're becoming predominantly a service-related community. Because now you're having doctor's offices, therapy, you're having adult daycare center, you're having a lot more. So during the day, there's no parking. There's no parking. You go down Westward Drive, down to Ghost Town. It's typically a ghost town. So one of the things is the makeup of the business community. That's what's happening right now. You have a bank now that brings in a lot of customers. You had a steak and egg back then. That you had the breakfast crowd. So if you look at it, it's morphed into something completely different than what it was 20 years ago. It was starting to morph when they came in, and now it's really completely. You don't have restaurants open at night. You have a few, just a few compared to what you had. You had Hunters, which was a nightclub. So it was really, the people would go to the theater, the same people would go to the theater, some groups would go to the Hunters. So parking has changed. The dynamics of the parking. The post office was empty, so people would park here. But you had parking issues at night, not so much during the day, and now it's completely the opposite. So that's something that needs to be, the makeup, the mix of the businesses that are coming to the city has to be looked at closely. When we come up with codes, what we allow and what we don't allow, that's something that may need to be looked at closely. So you have a good mix.
So we've dug deeply into the parking issue. So without objection, I will continue that on our agenda for our next meeting, because obviously there's a lot of conversation to continue to be had. But do me a favor, and as you're moving your way around, not only our community, but other communities, look at how the parking supports the business and vice versa. Because if you can't park, it's really the death knell of a business, because that's what people expect. And by the way, they want to park right in front. So while that may not be realistic, having done some time in the parking authority, I certainly understand what people's expectations are.
But you have to if you're in a grocery store. You're not
Understood
with
that,
4
yes.
blocks with bags in your hand. So you're not
But that cart's gonna lock up on you.
That's right.
Alex.
If I may, I'd like to make a comment on agenda item 4C. I want to thank the task force. Thank you, Mark, for reaching out and inviting the chamber to be here this evening. A couple of us are very excited about this. One of the struggles we had when we began the chamber was the communication or lack thereof between the chamber and the city. So we're excited that this task force may help us with that ribbon cutting. We find out about them in the Gazette. So hopefully we can be a little bit more involved in ribbon cutting going forward. I'd like to also mention to the audience that there's a lot of the businesses here. You can reach out to MiamiSpringsChamber.org, and I encourage you to reach out and join. One of our functions is to get a big group of businesses together, not only network and help our community that way, but also to become a unified voice that we can come to this task force with our grievances, concerns, or suggestions. So I encourage everyone that's in the audience, all of you, to reach out to MiamiSprings.chamber.org. There's an application there. Our fees are insignificant, being such a young chamber, but I think the benefit and the growth potential would help everybody. So thank you for the opportunity to be here
No,
tonight.
thank you for your leadership. I know this is a labor of love over and above a very full-time job.
Yes.
Sorry.
But,
I'll state my name and address for the record. I'm Alex Miranda. I'm a resident of the Springs for the last 20 years. I'm at 272 Canal Street and president of the Miami Springs Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you.
And one of the things that in terms of that communication, I mean, we can talk about this offline too, is maybe even having a member of the council that serves ex officio on your board or something like that. So at least there are, even greater opportunities for collaboration. But I know in talking with our mayor, she is definitely supportive of finding other ways to celebrate that. We didn't do that, right, for our friends at UTV. And now that's turned into something else, I'm sorry to say. But when you spend that kind of money, time, and effort, that's a big deal coming into a business, so. So, yes, please.
One other comment on the rolling out the red carpet.
Yes.
We goodie bags that we can give away. They have a lot of goodies that they can give to businesses and consumers. They have a lot of ideas. And so I just think it's something else that we should add to the list of resources that we have available to help us as we work on the red carpet ideas.
So I love that you mentioned that, Mike. You worked on a big project called ACI Worldwide, which is now in the Gables, and through the Beacon Council, of course, we kind of took that handoff and we met with their chief administrative officer actually yesterday. They've got about 33 folks already here, growing to 77, which is incredible. But we're doing something just like that. So I put the call out to our city and our downtown bid to put together some goodie bags to welcome them. But you have no idea sometimes how the smallest gesture, creates the greatest goodwill for the longest period of time. People do always remember that. Unfortunately, they also remember when they didn't get that. So we have to work on both sides of that equation. So the last time, yes, please go ahead.
Just one more quick
Please.
comment. I believe that we should look at doing some sort of event calendar, because that will bring more people into the city. And I think that that is something that the chamber could help with. We had started on that initiative before the pandemic. So in terms of trying to get a mix of businesses and a little bit more traffic at night and so forth, I think that a lot can be done. And I think that's how a lot of cities do it around the US, to bring in more people.
Yeah, I think folks do have a mechanism for collaboration like you're talking about. And as your membership grows, you'll be able to tap into many of those. I mean, I'm the biggest fan in the world of the pumpkin patch. My heart goes down on November 1st. And those lovely ladies and gentlemen who have been baking those muffins and pies, go into hibernation for the next 11 months. I'm all about having a pumpkin pie like in April. So putting that out there as an idea.
We could do that.
That'd be great. So one item that was under old business was discussion on small business incentive. We had some discussion on that last month. I don't know if there was anything new that folks wanted to approach, or if we will leave that as a continuing kind of old business item as we continue to work. So we'll roll that over without objection. Great. So we talked about public comments already. We're going to start prepping the agenda for the next meeting. And I do want to open the floor to our elected officials who reserve the right to speak at the end of our meeting. Councilman Best.
Thank you, Mark. Members. Covered a lot of issues tonight, an awful lot. Mr. Finney's point, it seems to me that he is on the right track relative to how this board is going to continue on the road, relative to forming an infrastructure and how you want to operate. There's a gentleman here earlier that spoke, who talked about what nature of businesses do we want to attract? Do we want it to be I think the term suburban was brought up versus urban. I think that's very salient versus this document. Because I think at the end of the day, we are more of a suburban orchestrated community relative to retail business. Any question about that? To Mr. Milam's point, a lot needs to be done relative to parking. I don't know if it was this board or one other that I spoke in front of over the years. Jim Boardman, who was city manager here 3 managers ago, did a study one time. And he said he did it himself. He didn't ask for any assistance. And he stood out right in the middle of the gazebo, which he considered epic center, and went 500 feet radius in every direction. And as much as it's not developed, et cetera, and the element of convenience, which Mr. Trowbridge brought up, it was 561 parking places, 500 feet from the center of the gazebo. Trouble is, they're all over the place. Now, to the point that was made earlier about parking, this council or councils that I've served on over the years have addressed that. And you referenced the report, Mr. Milo, earlier. And we did do a study. We spent a fair amount of money. And we got what was considered a nice product out of it. The only trouble was $28,000 a parking place. So naturally, that was scrapped. That was the most recent effort in doing that. The other point that was brought up, which I think is very salient to the committee, is the 3 studies over the years that we have conducted in the city. One is the Dover Coal Report, which I think Mr. Hernandez brought up earlier, the Lamb report and the Carandino report. I would urge the clerk and the clerk's office to dust these reports off and get them to each member, because there's a lot of excellent ideas in those reports. Again, over the years, it's boiled down to money, it's boiled down to our ability to fund it and to all come to a inclusive effort in terms of how and in what direction we want to go. To me, that's why you guys are here. Well, to better direct us in trying to get something done. And back to your point, Mr. Milam, again, there's no reason in the world why somebody that has done it right all these years is being penalized for it. I fully empathize with you. And I think that we, down the road, need to consider that in some small fashion. Thank you all again for serving. And I'm looking forward to this next meeting. I really enjoy coming to these. Thank you all for your input. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman. Madam Mayor?
Wow, I just want to say that again, just listening, and honestly, I'm just here to listen. I'm absorbing so much information. I wanted to mention again, I hope none of you feel just because Councilman Best and I are here, there's something that you might say that might offend us or that you don't want to say in front of us. We want to hear it. Both of us want to hear it. We want to hear the real truth. We want to hear it, the problems that the city is having. I understand the frustration, of all these years, 17 years or 20 years that things haven't changed. I feel the pain. I understand it. I feel it. The only thing I can say is we weren't on the council then. This is why we've asked you to be here now, because it seems like the city has been going around in a circle, talking about that we need improvement, but not really doing it. And some of the things that I wanted just to mention that we are making some effort is the code. Our code is extremely antiquated in a lot of areas. I mean, the city was started having a code in 1926. And there are things that just do not apply. A lot of issues that have been preempted by the state or the federal government. And it's still in our code, but realistically, we can't enforce it because it's been preempted. So this is a can that's been kicked down by the city for a long time that we need to update the code. And this recently, just a few months ago, we passed it through the budget. We're going to take the first step. We can't do the whole code at once. It's huge, but we can bring it down to small pieces and work on it that way. And so our first, we're going to tackle the sign code, the city sign code. And we put in the money budgeted for our attorneys to look at it and update it and make sure it's consistent with state and federal requirements and also what we would like here for the city. So I just want to put that across to let you know that we're working on it in small pieces, but there's so much more we can do. One of the things from last month that we talked about the buildings, that when you walk, if you have to park far away from a business, and my understanding is with a lot of our businesses they need the foot traffic. So perhaps not parking right in front and parking a little further down the block. And that's not to say for the Milams at all, because obviously with groceries, you need to be right there. But my understanding was that it's desirable to have to walk a few stores and past some of the stores to get that foot traffic in so that you know that it's there. And I think that our community has that right now. I don't think anyone has to walk more than a block or so to find parking. But that said, we have to figure, if you're telling us that there's a parking problem, then there's a parking problem. It doesn't matter that I can go out and find all this parking. I know how to find parking, and anyone that lives in Miami Springs knows how to find parking. But people that are visiting or that are coming here quickly don't want that challenge. They just want to know where they park. Just this morning, I had spoken with our city manager about, and it was brought up here about perhaps looking at some of the low-lying fruit with parking, that if our city employees and the businesses, the employees are using up the parking and they're going to be there 8 hours a day or 9 hours a day, taking up parking, then we need to figure out a place where there's parking for them. And one of the things we discussed is with the churches, some of the churches near here that have empty parking lots that are not being used. Evidently, it was rented at one time. The city years ago, I was told, was renting some parking space from one of the churches. It was available, but no one was using it because we weren't really enforcing the 2-hour minimum. So these are all things that, that's not gonna solve all of the parking problems by any means, but they're things that we can start addressing right away. And with the businesses that we were talking about, I just started this past, since the last meeting, is walking around and taking pictures of buildings. And I did have that, the one that you're talking about with, you walk by, where there has to be something we can do to make the owner at least clean it up. And Mark's suggestion about requiring, the papering on the outside, something attractive. I love that. Picture your business here. They're all ideas that just hearing from you, and I know you're going to make your formal recommendation. I wanted to let you know that I'm listening. I know Councilman Best is listening. The council will be listening. We hear you. We feel the pain also, but we're going to get better. We're going to work really, really hard at getting better, and you're the ones that are going to pull us up by the bootstraps so we get there. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councilman. As we prepare to adjourn, are there any agenda items you want to make sure are included for our next meeting? And if you haven't thought of them for tonight, send them through Myra, through the clerk's office, and we'll make sure they get on the agenda. All right, it's been a lengthy meeting, a lot of spirited discussion, which we appreciate. And thank you, Madam Mayor, for releasing people from having to worry about what they're saying. I think we've got that. All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor, aye? Any opposed? Nay. Stand adjourned. Thank you. Thanks to everybody that participated tonight, came out and spent time with us. It means the world to us.